would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Gundungurra land, and people. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I also want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which you, our listeners, are joining us from today. I recognise the deep connection that First Nations people have to this land, their enduring culture, and their commitment to the preservation and care for their country. This land was never ceded, and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Hey there, and welcome to Beyond the Surface, the podcast where we explore the stories of people who have survived religious trauma, left high control or cult communities, and are deconstructing their faith. I'm your host, Sam, and each week I'll talk with individuals who have taken the brave step to start shifting their beliefs that might have once controlled and defined their lives. Join us as we dig into their experiences, the challenges they've faced, and the insights they've gained. Whether you're on a similar journey or you're just curious about these powerful stories, you're in the right place. This is Beyond the Surface. Welcome, Zoe. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I want to give a little context before we jump in as to how I know you, but we grew up in the same area and went to the same high school. It's different years, but one of your siblings was in my years, so I sort of know you through that. But I now sort of know you mainly because of the work that you do in body whispering and massage and things like that. And I know that will all come up, so I don't want to get straight into that, but I guarantee that it will all come up. But in terms of your story with church and faith and spirituality, where does that start for you?
So it starts, I guess, when I was born or in early childhood. My mum is a devout Christian, still is. So I grew up going to the church every Sunday, and it was a huge, huge part of my life. For the most part, I went to Christian-based primary schools as well. So there was a big portion of my life where I was living and breathing Christianity and being a child of God. And it wasn't until I went to high school really that my mum kind of gave us permission to move in whatever direction felt good. And it no longer felt good for me. So I grew up a very devout Christian child, and my whole way of thinking and life and everything was pretty much centered around God and around that.
This might be a weird word, but what flavor of Christianity were you raised with?
Like Anglican Christian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it quite conservative or was it fairly progressive?
I would say pretty conservative. I guess with the way that my family is, my mum is very Christian, my dad is not, and my friends and family friends on my dad's side were very not as well. So I feel like I grew up somewhat with a foot in a very non-conservative way of living, looking at life and things. But then with my mom, and on my mom's side was very much in the church. The church itself, I went to many churches. I think they would maybe have called themselves progressive, but I would disagree. So I would say it's conservative, but not in the super extreme sense.
Yeah. What was it like for you as a child to have, I guess, a split faith home?
Well, my mum and dad divorced when I was young, so I was 3 or something when they separated. But I definitely remember it being Yeah, something that I thought about and was concerned about. And what's really interesting now is my brothers and I, we look back and we read the letters that we used to write my dad.
Mm,
And because we didn't always live near him, he lived in the Blue Mountains, and we, for most of my childhood, were living up north and going to church up there. And we
mm,
would write to him. And we look back now, and there are some letters that we've found where we're trying to convert him to Christianity. And it is the most fascinating thing to read because it is like you can feel our conditioning in it, and
mm.
almost like a weird air of brainwashing.
Yeah.
We're writing to my dad, and it'll be like, we've been going to soccer, we've been doing this, we've been doing that. And then all of a sudden it will switch to like, have you heard the word of
Mm,
Jesus? And it would be like this full, like, he will save you from your sin. It's so fascinating to look back on. So it was challenging because my dad, it just was very anti it, as were my grandparents on his side. Like, they stopped giving us birthday money because we would just give it straight to the church.
yeah.
So there was some friction there, and I think as children who were fully believing everything we were absorbing, we wanted our dad to be saved, so yeah, definitely created some yeah some friction, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you remember whether at the time there was the need to tell him about Jesus because you had a personal relationship with him, or was it fear-based? Like, was it because you didn't want him to go to hell?
Mm, Probably a bit of both.
Mm,
As a kid and growing up, I lived in, like, I had a very personal relationship with God, with
mm,
that energy. But it was at the time very driven by fear.
yeah.
And so, yeah, my desire to have other people saved definitely came from a fear of losing them or them going to hell, for sure.
Yeah. Was was that something that you were explicitly taught, or was it just something that you understood from the people around you?
Yeah, it's just something that I understood. So my home itself was pretty open. Like, my mum, she's very Christian, but very open to all sorts of people and ways of thinking and being. And there was a lot that we absorbed through Sunday school and through our friends and through their parents and through just being so immersed in Christian culture. My mum and I talk about it now, and she'll be like, I don't remember ever instilling that in you. And I'm like, you didn't have to. You don't, when you're so immersed in that environment, you can't control
Mm,
necessarily what kids are absorbing. Just because it's not taught in the home doesn't mean it's not taught in the church. So
yeah.
yeah, definitely more so something I picked up in Sunday school and in the church itself.
Yeah. I think so often we think that those internalized messages come from being explicitly taught. Yeah, I think we think that it's coming from like, preaching from the pulpit and like very explicitly being taught, but so much of that comes from like implicit, subtle messaging that is
Mhm.
happening generally on a very regular basis.
Mm.
Were you guys just a church on a Sunday kind of family, or were you like immersed in it every day of the week?
Church on a Sunday, but then at home, we would pray and
Mm,
have conversations about God and about the Bible.
mm,
And then at school as well, because I was going to Christian schools, that was sort of woven into day-to-day structure or life. But yeah, church was mainly on Sundays.
mm. What was it like going to a Christian school? What was that experience like?
Um, I it's funny. I have so many random memories of going to school, because it was a very small school. It was like there was like 26 people from like kindergarten to year six. So it was very small, close knit. And the thing that stands out to me actually the most is probably the leadership drama. Like, there was always so much friction between who's trying to lead and control and take over and who knows best. Like as a child, I remember being very aware of because it was so small, everyone was so hyper involved. So um yeah, I mean, it wasn't like our classes or days revolved around the church, but it was just sort of woven in here or there.
Yeah. It feels a little bit like church politics, hey? Like,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
yeah. 100%. That would be the word for it. Yeah. There was
Yeah.
just a lot of
Everybody is right.
politics.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were some of the internalized messages that you had about yourself, about the world around you?
Mm, the strongest things I remember were definitely like I had this thing as a kid that I was just asking for forgiveness all the
Mm,
time in my
yeah.
mind. After, if I accidentally swore inside my own head, not even out loud, I would be praying for forgiveness because
Yeah.
I was convinced that if I didn't, that I would go to hell. So there was a lot of like internalized fear around having to be good.
Mm,
And I definitely had that like good girl um, persona, I suppose, or this fear that I had to be good. And I guess what it meant to be good was to be quiet and to obey and to submit
yeah.
and to apologize and to like overgive as well. So I definitely carried, even after I left the church, that became a foundation of my personality.
Mm,
Was this need to be good, to be liked, to please, to make people proud. And even in the church, like, I do body work and massage and I guess forms of healing now, but my relationship to my hands started in the church because for whatever reason, I don't know how it happened, but I became known for having healing hands in the church. And so
mm,
I would pray for people and be asked to pray for people. So I did have this very real connection to a higher power, like moving through my body through my hands. But I felt this immense responsibility to heal. And I'm like, I can't even play, like I'm on the job,
yeah.
um, so it's like that's been a huge part of my gift and my work now, but it came with a lot of warped, like psychological ties to it.
Yeah.
Um,
How old were you
yes,
at the time?
probably about 6 or 7.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah, so young.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's really fucked up to put that kind of pressure on, like, I mean, you're a child, right?
Mm,
Like,
mm, mm,
to put the pressure of somebody else's ailment, irrespective of what that is, on anybody is
mm,
overwhelming, let alone putting that on a child who, realistically should just be out running around with their friends, playing and enjoying life, and
mm,
not necessarily worried about um, the people around you, like even from like an
mm,
emotional standpoint, the pressure that that puts
mm.
on somebody.
Yeah, it's such a double-edged sword
Yeah.
because it also gave me a sense of gratification and meaning and validation, which
Mm,
then I had a very unhealthy relationship with needing to be validated,
yeah.
needing to be perfect, needing to be important, needing to be I loved being important
Mm,
in the church.
yeah.
And so, yeah, it is a lot of pressure. And I've definitely over the years had to, especially because I use that gift now in my work, is I've had
Mm,
to detangle it. And yeah, I've really become aware of like the unhealthy attachments to the gift or to that where that started in the church. But
mm,
yeah, I think like I just had such a there's this pressure for perfection
mm. Yeah.
that was really instilled, and that if you're not, it's like this constant striving to be good and perfect, and
Mm,
it really pushes you to see the bad in you sometimes. And then as I got older and started to I expand my worldviews and also became, attracted to the same sex and like all these things. It's yeah, you really see where this need to be good and perfect is.
Yeah. And
Mm.
there is it's the irony of, um, you are told time and time again to try and be more like Jesus, but Jesus is also then taught that he is the epitome of perfection. And so you
Mhm.
are then just in a constant cycle of just striving to be perfect.
Mhm.
And then I feel like on top of that, particularly, um, more so for women or people who are socialized as women in the church, there is not just, you don't just need to strive for perfection, you also need to strive for purity. And so
Mm.
it's like I mean, one more P in that and you've got a sermon, I feel like. But
Mm.
where everything is like alliteration. But yeah, it is. I mean, I would agree. I think I often talk about the fact that I would repetitively pray the sinner's prayer, essentially, because
Mm.
it's like, what if? Like, what if I had like screwed up since the last time that I had done that and I'm
Mm.
conscious of it? And so it puts you in a state of like chronic anxiety.
Mm. Mm.
To be constantly striving for something that is ultimately unattainable,
Mm.
and really unhealthy to be striving for that as well.
Mm. Mm.
Um, I'm curious what it was like for you to start broadening your concept of your own sexuality, having been raised
Mm.
in an environment that often suppresses anything out of heterosexuality and
Mm.
heteronormativity.
Mm. It was such a mixed experience, and I think as far as experiences go for Christians, like mine was probably less severe than
Mm,
what some people go through. Um, I think after because we had been living away from my dad, and then we moved back to the Blue Mountains, and that's when I started to go to Lithgow High School, where you were.
mhm,
Um, and that reconnected me to a world that I had been so separate from. At that point, I didn't know, like, I had only ever really listened to Christian music. I didn't know any like mainstream music or
yeah,
mainstream movies. I didn't know. I was so like sheltered, I suppose. But I guess I fell into a certain group at school, and that everything changed. And yeah, I guess I just started to become my own person, and my mum, yeah, like I said, she gave us permission to choose
mm,
our own path, and you can keep coming to church with me, or you don't have to. And we all chose to stop going.
yeah,
And I then started to explore, yeah, like drinking and smoking and like all these little things, and music and different clothes and movies and foods, and
mm,
um with that came my own, yeah, sexuality. And I even just moving forward with intimacy with boys back then,
mm,
or not even intimacy, just flirting or like connection, that was edgy enough. Like that was so far out of like the purity culture, that or the purity stuff that I had embedded in myself. So when I started to notice an attraction to the same sex, it was really confronting. And I'll always remember how that came about for me, which was um, a backstory. On school holidays, we went to like a caravan park, and there was a girl there that was staying there with her parents, and we connected. We swapped MSN addresses at the time, and and
there is going
we
to be like a whole generation of people who have no idea what that is, and
it's
that's
so
like
sad.
heartbreaking.
I miss MSN.
Oh,
And so we stayed in touch. I can't even going to share this, is so embarrassing. But basically, I had a best friend at school, and she became really good friends with somebody else, and I got jealous. She
mm,
then kissed that girl at school, and I was disgusted. Like I was so angry about it, and so what I thought was disgust. Like I was like, and I literally was so triggered by it that I changed my MSN status to something about like, oh my God, ooh, I can't believe you did that at school, something, something, something. Anyway, this girl that I had met on holiday, she messaged me about it. I was like, what are you talking about? And it opened this conversation. Well, my best friend, she kissed this girl and she said, what's wrong with that? And I was like, it's just wrong. It's just not okay. And then we started to have a conversation. She was a bit older than me and she was bisexual. And it made me realize that I was actually jealous. Like I wanted that. But the only emotion I knew for that was disgust and to reject and to push away and to want to hurt her. I didn't know what to do with that feeling. So I then was hurtful with it. And so from there, I started to be like, oh, girls can like girls. That's insane. And coming from a small town, like you would know in Lithgow, that's not something that is widely demonstrated. And you don't really have anybody to talk to about it, anybody to explore, about it. So I felt very alone and very secretive and suppressed with that feeling. All I had was the girl on MSN, and sometimes I would fake sick and stay home and go into chat rooms to talk to girls to explore that. So it was like, as a teenager, it was so confusing. And then when I was in year 8, we moved to America because that's where my mum is from. And we went to an American school. And this is probably one of the biggest blessings for me because I went into this school and I was exposed to people, ethnicities, sexualities, gender, like all sorts of things that I'd never, ever seen before. And everybody over there was bisexual, queer, whatever, and so it gave me permission to explore that part of myself. And I saw myself in these other people. And so that was about 13, 14. I made a best friend over there, fell in love with her, never told her. Long story short, I went back again when I was 16 and she was the first girl I ever kissed.
Oh, what a nice full circle moment.
It was such a full circle moment. And that was when I told my mum, because my mum picked me up from her house and she knew. And I said to my mum, no, she said to me, because I had a hickey on my neck. But anyway,
That'll
she
give it
said,
away.
yeah, she said, so you like Megan, huh? And I was like, yeah, we're really good friends. And she's like, no, I mean, you like her. And I was like, yeah, I do. And she was like, okay, let's get pancakes. And that was it. So my mum's always been pretty accepting. We've had some hard conversations later down the road, though, especially when gay marriage was becoming legalized. And it almost, the tough bit, and this has been probably the toughest bit for me with her and other people in my life, is they accept me for me, but they still think the sexuality is a sin.
Yeah.
And so that for me has been the hardest bit to navigate, is like, I can't find peace with that, that you can accept me and you love me, but you still see my choice to be with a woman as a sin. So my mum and I have navigated a lot around that. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but that was kind of my journey into like I said, compared to some people, it was my parents were all very like as accepting as they could be.
I think that people don't necessarily realize just how harmful and painful the concept of love the sinner, hate the sin mentality of like that, like you said, is rooted in the fact that they believe that sexuality is a choice and that you are choosing that. And on the flip side, there is a sect, I guess, of people who don't necessarily see it as a choice, but they still see that it needs to be something that you need to be celibate on, that
Yeah.
acting on that is the sin. Um, but
Mm,
it's still a like a dangerous line that we flirt between, like, um, love disguised as hate sort of
mm,
concept, where,
mhm,
uh, you say you love me, but it comes with caveats and it comes with,
mm,
terms and conditions. And we go,
mm,
how much of that is actually love and how much of it is you needing to fit the mold, the good girl
mm,
mold. Um,
mm.
and so, yeah, I can totally relate to, the initial feelings actually being jealousy.
Yeah.
But having absolutely no ability or no capacity to know what to do with any of those feelings. And instead,
Mhm,
yeah, it comes out as like disgust or hatred or, something like that. So,
mhm.
um, was that period of time for you exploring your sexuality, was that liberating, or were there times where you were like confused and was there still the panic around hell and displeasing God or anything like that?
Mm, the only thing that was confusing was that I wasn't living in an area where there was a large queer community. So
Yeah.
my exploring was maybe like my friend would like we would drunkenly kiss at a party, and
Yeah.
it, it's fun for them, it's real for me, and that kind of I feel like I didn't really get to explore fully until my late teens, early 20s,
Mm,
when dating apps became a thing and you could meet people of the same, sexuality that didn't live near you.
mm,
Um, there wasn't I the fear around going to hell and the fear around my sexuality, I that wasn't an issue for me. I feel like once I really embodied that, and I also kind of conditioned my relationship to God, and also I just had these like light bulb moments where I felt like I could see things so clearly, and I could see that these other people's truths weren't mine,
mm,
and that maybe like and my God was okay with that,
mm,
So I think I still maintained a connection to something greater than me, and I think I found a lot of comfort in that, and I just saw other people's the conditions that I was holding, the fear that I was holding as not
mm,
mine. So I think I felt that transition out of that felt pretty easeful for me. There was definitely like fear around being seen with a girl the first time and other people's judgments, and just having to navigate society's homophobia, not
mm,
even just the Christian or religious homophobia.
yeah.
So that definitely came with his challenges. I would say I was more challenged by how I felt about men, to be honest, than and confused about that, to be honest, than I
Mhm.
did with, with women. It
Yeah.
was way more confusing.
Mm, yeah.
Mm.
What was it like for you to start untangling some of the internalized messages that you did get as a child from the church in terms of, that you need to be good and that striving for perfection and purity? What was it like for you to
Mm.
detangle some of that?
Oh, the purity thing was such a big thing, and redefining or recreating a new relationship with sex and pleasure and intimacy and touch, which is really at the core of what I do, like sensuality. Like I was so uncomfortable in my body. Like I might have been comfortable with my sexuality, but being growing up in the church does not teach you how to be comfortable in your body. It does not teach you
Mhm.
anything about how to be comfortable with pleasure and sexuality and sensuality and all those things. We feel like our body belongs to another and it's not ours to inhabit. We feel guilt around pleasure.
Mhm.
feel guilt around being promiscuous or for not, abiding to the rules. And that was probably my biggest journey, because even when I was out of the church and I was kind of even embodying my sexuality, I was so uncomfortable in my body, so
Mm.
uncomfortable being seen, so uncomfortable being touched, so disconnected from my pleasure, so disconnected from my erotic nature, my sensuality, my what I would call womanhood or whatever, my period even, just all things that really make me me
Mm.
in my body. I was so severed from that, and so it's definitely been a journey back to the body and a reclamation of innocence, that I'm not guilty, that I'm innocent, that my sex is innocence, my pleasure is innocence, my sensuality is innocent, my sexuality is innocent. And just a reclamation, yeah, of pleasure and all of those things that the church will sever you from, and then have you feeling guilty for, and then use as power over you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that for me has probably been the biggest
Mm.
detangling that needed to happen.
Yeah. Um, yeah, purity culture has like really like fucked with so many people.
Mm,
And I mean, it sucks for everybody, but it really sucks for women, because like you said, your body is not your own.
mm,
And not only are you, though, responsible for your own body, you're also responsible for the body of the men around you and the
mm,
minds and the hearts of the men around you also. So it's not just, yeah, about controlling your body, but it's about the guilt around,
mm,
your own body, your own sexuality, but also that of everybody around you.
mm,
Um, and yeah, I think a lot of people think that purity culture is just about sex, but it's so much bigger than that. It's like, it's so much bigger. And if purity culture is not just the reason that there is a huge disconnect from your body. You're not taught to trust it. In fact, you are actively taught not to trust it.
mm,
That it
mhm,
is just a vessel to get you through this life, right? And
mm,
I people will often talk about purity culture being synonymous with rape culture and sexual assault culture. I think it's also synonymous with diet culture and fat
mm.
phobia and body image and all of those things. Um, what helped you come back to your body during that time?
Mm. I mean, firstly would definitely be the massage.
Mm,
Though even in the first years of my career, I was very comfortable giving
mm,
touch, but I think that it was actually a way of me receiving connection and intimacy and touch without having to be on the receiving end, because it didn't feel comfortable for me. But I would say that it's definitely been massage and body work that opened a doorway for me to find my way back to myself, for me to learn about my body,
mm,
even at first, just on a very physical level.
mm,
Learning so many things I didn't know. It just allowed me to be like, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that about it's pretty cool that you do. Like, just actually getting to know the vessel, and understanding it. And at first, it was very physical, and then it became way more emotional and spiritual and energetic. And I started to develop a relationship with it. But I would say that the biggest turning point for me when it came to my relationship to my body was probably about 9 years ago. I was definitely, well, I grew up with just such terrible self-esteem and body image, and I just hated my body. I hated looking at it, I hated touching it, I always thought I needed to lose weight, be skinny, whatever, I will be happy when. And my inner dialogue when it came to my body was so toxic and abusive. And I went through this phase, though, about 9 years ago, where I was studying the effects of energy, positive and negative energy, on water.
mm,
and how when water is exposed to positive energy, it enhances the cellular structure of water and the health of the water. When it's exposed to negative energy, it does the opposite. And at first I was applying this to massage. I was like, okay, if humans are like 60, 70% water, what I'm thinking and feeling during a treatment is having a real impact on the water content, the cellular structure of the water, and that's going to influence how they feel at the end of this session. So my intention is everything. And then I was like, oh my God, what are my own thoughts doing to me? And while I was studying this, I saw this experiment that a guy named Dr. Emoto did. And he did this experiment on rice where he cooked rice. And, as you know, rice absorbs water. So it's a high water content. And he put rice into one jar, and that was like the positive jar, put rice into another jar, it was a negative jar. And for 30 days, students at his school would go up to it and just hold the jar and just feed it the most like disgusting, hateful, negative thoughts, like not saying it out loud, just like imagine putting it in there. And then to the love jar, they would just feed it with happy, loving, like affirming. And over the 30 days, the love jar stayed almost white, and then the hate jar was like black and moldy and disgusting. And they've done replicated this same experiment with, fruit and plants and things. So I did that experiment. And that was the most profound shift for me, because I saw over a month what my thoughts and feelings and emotions were doing to the rice or to the water. And then I was like, I'm just killing myself. Like, I am really hurting my body. And at the time, I was really struggling with my health. And I was like, it could even be fucking with my health. So I gave up dieting, I gave up exercising, I gave up all of those things. And all I focused on was creating a healthier state of mind. And I just asked myself the question, and I still ask myself the question, if the relationship I'm having with my body was a relationship between two people, what sort of relationship would it be? How do they speak together? Like, do they spend quality time? Are they okay being alone together? Do you walk on eggshells? Does any little thing set them off? Do they criticize? Do they put you down? Do they shame you? Do they or do you feel safe? Do you feel loved? Do you feel heard? Do they make space for you, time for you? Do they validate your feelings? Do they hold you while you feel them? So I just started to look at my relationship to my body through the lens of a relationship between two people. And I was like, this is the most abusive relationship I've still ever been in. So from there, I just woke up the next day and I just decided to pay closer attention to my thoughts. And every time I would say something mean, I'd apologize and go, you don't deserve that. And I'd replace it with something else. And I did that for months and months and months. I lost like 10 kilos. My skin cleared up, like the health issues that I had cleared up. And there's so much more that came after that. But that was the real defining moment in my journey back to the body and in relating with the body and reclaiming my body as mine. And yeah.
Was it hard?
Yeah, so hard. Can still be hard,
Yeah.
but like any relationship, you don't just fix it and then it's fixed. A relationship between two people is like, as you know, if you're in a relationship, it's like you choose that person every day.
Yeah.
And you choose to open to them and you choose to lean into them even when you want to run away. And if you fucked up or you've said some horrible stuff to them, you take responsibility, you take accountability, you apologize. It's not about being perfect, but it is about like leaning back in, opening and apologizing, and choosing to heal together, grow together, and choosing to love, really. It's like that. Love is a choice. It's not an easy choice always, but like any healthy relationship, it takes work and it takes conscious effort, not just deal with it when it implodes, which is what a lot of us do with our bodies. Is we don't focus on it until we are sick, until we're unwell, until we're burnt out.
Yeah.
Just like with a relationship with a human, we don't focus on all the stuff we've swept under the rug until everything implodes. So it's a skill, and some days it's easy and some days it's hard. But it's definitely now, I would say, my state of mind, like the thoughts. I don't ever like my thoughts are very positive, high quality.
Mm.
Like I might wake up and be like, oh, I feel like this, or like, oh, I really didn't honor my body with food this week or movement. And so I can feel those things, but it's such at the foundation is love now, for sure.
And it sounds like it's more about reflection and awareness as opposed to just like contempt and criticism and insult. And yeah, I think that that
Totally.
imagery of like, we talk about, our relationship with our body, but I think the concept for people who have, grown up to disconnect from their body, um, that imagery of, of talking to your body and it being like if your body was another person, what would it say? And, those sorts of
Mm,
things I think can be a really helpful way for people who, this is really unknown for them
mm, mm, mm,
to be able to do that. I often will say to clients, if you're only ever in recovery mode, you're never resting. And that kind of
mm,
reminds me of, which is that we often only respond to our body when it's in pain or it's sick or it's at its
mm,
wit's end,
mm,
as opposed to, um, on a daily, regular, consistent basis.
mm,
Um,
mm,
yeah. Um, Well, I'm curious because often people, when we talk about, religious trauma or deconstruction or, depending on what hashtag or keyword you want to use in that realm, um, people will often talk about the fact that, um, or you just left the church because you want to sin more, or you just left the church
mm,
because you're angry and bitter at God, or because you just
mm,
want to do whatever you want. And there's also, I guess, like the assumption that everybody who is not at church is an atheist, right? And
mm,
but I know from the content that you produce that you are a deeply spiritual person. And
mm,
so I'm curious what the shift was like between that divine being God and the divine being whatever it is now for you.
mm. Yeah, so when I left the church, like 12, yeah, probably like 11 or 12, I disconnected totally spiritually.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel anything. I didn't pray to anything. I feel like I needed to
Mm.
sever my tie.
Yeah.
What happened though too is like with my hands and my gifts is what I wanted to do with my hands became purely physical. I'll become a
Mm.
remedial massage therapist. I'll do sports massage, treat injuries, have my own clinic in Lithgow. That was the dream.
Oh my goodness. I
um,
laugh because like I still like I mean I have family who live there so we go back fairly regularly, but I think it's probably a town if I had a choice I would not go back to.
no, yeah, no, exactly.
So the fact that
No,
Lithgow is in part of the dream just is
it's just
super
hilarious.
humorous to me.
Yeah, exactly. So when I left school and I started studying massage, I it was still very physical, but I had a couple of moments that really opened me back up. And the first one was struggling to retain information for anatomy and physiology. And I was walking around one day and I happened to go into a crystal shop. And I don't know why I asked, but I was like, do you have anything that's good for memory? And I bought this necklace. And it was like a clear quartz with a blue topaz. And I started to wear it daily. And placebo or not, I don't really know, but my memory improved and I ended up doing really, really well. So I think that crystals were my gateway in because then the next experience that I had was working in a clinic and I worked alongside another practitioner who had a black tourmaline crystal on his desk. And one day I was just looking at it and I felt this urge to pick it up and listen to it. And I did, and I threw it because I heard like the loudest rainforest birds, like water, and it did something to me. Like I was like, what is that? So I started to get really curious about crystals.
Mm,
And at the time, I also started to work in a day spa or a resort where we were doing more like energy based treatments, crystal based treatments. And I started to learn about the energetic body and the emotional body and the holistic aspect of the body and the connection that that has to the earth and to the sky. And like it just started to open me up. And then from there it was like, yeah, that connection that I had severed opened back up again, but it was something that was completely new for me. Like it was very different. And now that it has developed over time, I would say that, like, when I talk to my mum, we realize we have a lot of similar beliefs, but we have different language for it. And really, I mean, essentially, that's how I feel. What I feel all religions are is you're connecting to the same source,
yeah.
but you've interpreted it and you've translated it
Mm,
into your own language, into your own experience, into your own terms or whatever. But really, when you look at them, there's some very similar things that overlap and cross over. So I think we all have been connecting to this higher power or this higher, source, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And we've just translated it in different ways and then use those translations for power and for all sorts of other things. So um, yeah, it was definitely massage and body work in my hands that were my way back into my spiritual connection. Crystals definitely were a point of access as well in the beginning. And then when I really got on like my personal development journey and like around the rice experiment thing, had a bit of a spiritual, I guess, awakening.
mm,
Um, where I started to really feel that connection, sense that connection, commune with it, talk to it,
mm,
you work with it when I'm working, and just feeling part of something bigger, but feeling that bigness within me as well,
mm,
feeling like an extension of it,
mm.
an expression of it. So yeah, I severed the connection and then it kind of opened and it has just continuously and continues to evolve.
Yeah. I have a friend who coined the phrase, God is a woman and that woman is me. And as you
Mm,
sort of said, that like, the divineness sort of being internal as well as, external and
mm,
ethereal. Um, but I love I love when people talk about actually there's so much shared experiences and so much shared belief cross religion and spirituality. I think that that's how we have empathy for one another,
mm,
because I will often talk about, and in my own deconstruction, I was like, at what point is energy, at what point is prophecy intuition? And
mm,
like, where does that line begin and
mm,
end? At what point is energy the Holy Spirit? At what
mm,
point are crystals, the communion and the symbols and the crucifix and all of
mm,
those things? Symbols are symbols. And so it's like there is so many crossovers.
mm,
And, irrespective of whether you use a divine figure or like a deity, or you use, the Abrahamic God, it's what you do with that
mm,
that is, the issue. If somebody can use yoga for harm, somebody
mm,
can use God for harm, right? Like,
mm,
and so I think being able to go, actually, there is so much shared here. It's just the language that we're using and what we're doing with it allows us to have empathy for those who might actually be different from us, as opposed to,
mm,
um, constantly feeling as though we need to criticize or call out. I mean,
mm,
and,
mm,
we always call out harm, but I think there is a way to do that with it being born from empathy.
mm,
Yeah. I love
definitely.
I love the crystals are the gateway. I feel it in like the gateway drug. I feel like for
Yeah,
so
for a
many
lot of
people.
people. Yeah,
So
yeah.
many people, because it is like it's so ironic because the amount of very, very devout Christians who would have crystals in their home, just like the irony is super humorous to me. Because obviously, like they're pretty, right? So it's like the gateway,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
necessarily
yeah,
realizing.
yeah.
But yeah. Um, I tend to finish these episodes with um I guess like a word of encouragement or advice or thoughts around um what you would say to somebody who is fresh in their deconstruction or they've just left church, they've just been hurt or something like that. What would you say to them who are
Mm,
in the initial stages of wrestling?
mm. I would say like, and I'll kind of circle back to that in a second, but something that you said kind of prompted this train of thought anyway, which was like it's prophecy,
Mm,
intuition, and it's one of the most important things when we're deconstructing this or breaking free from this or becoming who we're meant to be from this is the connection to body, because that's where the truth is, your truth. There is not, like, for me, I don't believe there is one truth.
yeah.
And like I just think it's like it would be insane to say that there is just one truth.
Mm,
I know it gives a lot of comfort to think that there is. It helps with, well, we think it helps with fear and all of those things, but there is only my truth and your truth, and I can't tell you what's true for you.
mm,
But that's why that connection to the body is so important, because that is the inner compass
mm,
for truth. Often, what happens when we leave religion, and I guess this is the piece of advice, is we substitute one authority for another.
mm,
You see this a lot in the new age, like spiritual community and personal development community, is we're still outside of ourselves for answers. We're still outside of ourselves for guidance. And it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing sometimes, thinking about this before I got on the podcast, of like even me fearing sinning, and now it's like I fear being out of alignment, otherwise I'll be punished or I won't
mm.
manifest what I'm manifesting. It's the same
Yeah.
dogma just wrapped up in different language, and I think this is why that like self-compassion and empathy and coming back to developing a relationship to your body,
Mm,
yourself, your sovereignty, your truth, creates a very solid foundation and compass to navigate the world, and navigate deconstruction, navigate whatever could come up. So my encouragement would be, whatever you're doing, is to also incorporate building a relationship to your body,
mm,
because that is the center of everything for me.
mm,
Our You are perceiving and experiencing the world through your body, so your relationship with it will determine how you interpret your life.
mm,
um, and that with the relationship to your psyche and all of those things. So like getting support from like a, or someone like who's specialized in this area as well, because I think that it's really hard to do alone. And I think that when you're new on this journey, you don't have a lot of words for what you're going through, and so having someone to speak to what you're experiencing is so healing, so supportive. So get help,
mm,
find community that is also where you're accepted, loved, understood, and make the relationship to your body and self a priority, as opposed to substituting one dogma for another, because it can be really easy to do that.
yeah. It's actually a super, super common experience, is yeah, to just trade fundamentalism in one space to fundamentalism in another.
Yeah.
So I think that yeah, I think that that's so important for people to think
Mm,
and to realize because it leaves you susceptible when, yeah, you're diverting that authority from inside to, an external, irrespective of who that person or figure
mm,
is.
mm,
Um,
mm, mm.
yeah, so I love that.
Yeah, I would just add, because when you grow up feeling like you need to be saved, you'll always look for someone to save you, and that
Mhm.
might be Jesus, it might
Mm.
be the divine masculine, it
Mhm.
might be a person, a partner, a man, a daddy, or whatever.
Mhm.
It's like, and people can support you, but they're not going to save you. And I
Yeah.
think when we stop looking to be saved,
Mm.
we find a certain sort of power that no one wanted us to have. Well, not
Particularly
no one, but
women.
particular people didn't want us to have. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I remember I recorded I think it was with Sarah Ann Haywood, who is in the US, but she was talking about the fact that like you're taught not to question when you're in the church. And we joked in that moment that we're probably proving them why, as like proving them
yeah.
right as to why they don't encourage that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think yeah, there is just that it's a default system that needs
Mm.
rewiring, that
Mm.
you know, you don't need saving or redeeming. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful. I love chatting.
Yeah.
And I love the work that you do, which
Thank
I
you.
know that you know that, but I think, you know, having people out there who understand what that disconnect looks like, not just from a logical, theoretical level, but what that disconnect looks like on like a I've lived it kind of
Mm.
level,
Mm.
is what that lived experience is. It brings the added extra. Um,
Mm. Mm.
so I love that.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Zoe.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Beyond the Surface. I hope you found today's conversation as insightful and inspiring as I did. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who might benefit from these stories. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and more content. I love connecting with all of you. Remember, no matter where you are in your journey, you're not alone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep moving forward. Take care.